In this video we will have a look as you can see how we can move our player game object in the forward direction. Okay, this is an 3D endless runner game. So in this video we will look around our player movement. Okay, also we can see our play camera is following our player independently. Okay, so we will have a look on this. And also you can join up on my Discord. I have a link in the description, and also the timestamp you can find in the description. Okay, so without furthering delay, let's dive into today's topic on player movement in 3D endless runner game. Okay, so let's get into that. As you can see, I have opened up an empty project. Okay, it's totally blank. We have our main camera in this in view and the light, directional light. So what we will do now, let's create the ground first. Okay, so go to hierarchy, right click, 3D object, then select this cube. Okay, and let's drag this cube down, something like this. Okay, something like this, and let's go over to inspector in the top right. Then let's scale it in the z-axis, something like 50. Okay, and in the x-axis let's do 20. So as you can see, let's drag this over here and hold down all and move your mouse. You can see, you can look around in this in view. So that's the cool thing. Okay, so this is our will be ground for now. Let's drag the ground something like over here. Okay, so this will be our ground. Okay, so let's suppose you want to change the color of the ground. Okay, to change the color of the ground, let's take a look. Go over to inspector. You can see material. It says default material. So we need to create material first to change the color. Okay, so let's go to assets. We need to go over to assets. Let's right click on the assets. Let's create folder. We want to keep all of the thing organized, so let's create folder first. Okay, folder, let's call this folder material. Okay, material, and let's go inside of that folder by double clicking on it or right click on that folder. Right click, create. Let's go to bottom over here. You can see material. Let's call this material to ground material. Ground material or ground, let's call it ground material. Okay, and select this material, go over to inspector, and you can change the color. Okay, and you can select this cube. Let's rename this cube to something like ground. So right click on it or rename, or what else you can do, select that game object, go over to inspector in the top right and name that to ground. Okay, ground, and what we will do, select this ground and go over to mesh renderer, then materials, and drag this ground material to there. Now it's changed. Or what else you can do, if I select default material, set against to default material. Okay, what else you can do, you can select this material and you can directly drag on over here. Okay, and you can select this material, select this ground material, go over to inspector. You can change with metallics, you can smoothness. Okay, you can play around this, just play around, you're gonna get hang of it. Okay, so let's create our player. To create our player, let's go to hierarchy. Okay, right click on hierarchy, and the thing is that in ground it's already added up a box collider for collision detection. So let's go to hierarchy first, right click, then 3D object, then let's select this cylinder. Okay, so this will be our player. So let's call this player instead of cylinder. Okay, and F2 focus on it, and let's drag it down. Okay, drag it down. Let's move it over something like here. Let's drag it. Okay, so right click on, so select the player game object first and go over to inspector, right click and reset the transform. Okay, and let's drag this, hold down alt so you can move around in this scene view. Let's select this and let's drag it over here. So this will be our player, and let's also create a player material to change our player color. To do so, go over to assets, right click on material folder, then create. Let's select this material. Let's call it player material. Okay, player material. And then let's go over to inspector. Let's change to a yellow color, something like that. Okay, and let's select this player. Okay, select this player and drag this material to that player, as you can see. And you can change the color always, so go to material and you can change any color you like. So I'm gonna go with this yellow, I guess. Okay, yellow. And you can play around with smoothness, metallic. Okay, something like this. Let's hit this play button. uh, we don't have rigid body today, we need to add that up for gravity. Okay, I have a cup of coffee, sorry. So what we can do now, so let's add up a gravity. So select this player game object, go over to inspector, in the add, click on add component, find over there rigid body. Okay, rigid body. As you can see, you can play around with mass. If you just increase the mass, this player game object will fall down uh, twice. Okay, if you just increase. And you can freeze the rotation about z-axis, x-axis, something like that. Okay, something. If I as you can see, we can see that if we just go over to transform then rotation and play around with a z-axis, we can see that player is weirdly rotating. So we don't want that. So I'm gonna set back to 0. So we will move over to a rigid body, then constraint, then freeze the rotation. So I'm gonna freeze the rotation about z-axis. Let's play around with x-axis rotation. Let's see what's happening. So as you can see, also we are able to see weirdly flipping. So we also don't want this. Okay, so we will freeze the rotation z, x-axis rotation. Okay, z-axis and y-axis rotation, we will freeze all of them to not get a weird flipping. Okay, so as you can see, we freeze all of the rotation and select collision detection to continuous, so it will continuously detect collision. So now if I select my game object and drag it little bit higher and then hit this play button, we should hope that our game object will fall down due to our gravity. We added up rigid body, which is responsible for adding up gravity. So it's, as you can see, it's perfectly fall down. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. Okay, so what we will do now, so I'm gonna drag this player game object down. We will create a script. Okay, in that script, basically we will attach that script to this player game object, and that script will responsible for moving our character or player game object in the forward direction. Okay, to do so, let's create a player script which will move our player game object. To do so, and go over to assets, then right click create folder. Firstly create a folder to keep all of the things organized. Let's call this folder scripts. Okay, let's call this folder scripts, sorry, scripts. And what we want to do in that script, so let's go to that script or right click on that script, then create, then C# script, name that script to something like player. I already have created, so I'm gonna select this player script and drag it to that script folder, and it will take a few moments for compiling. Okay, so just wait a little bit. Sorry, I'm just having the tea. It's morning time. So now select this player and select that script from that assets folder, free script folder, and drag that script to this add component section. Basically you need to attach that, or what else you can do, click on add component, find the script by typing of the name of the script, you name it and attach that. Okay, which is the player. So I already have attached, so let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. So we do know, let's remove these two namespaces from the top. We don't need need it for now. And let's go to update function. And we do know that we update function runs every single frame, so we need to move our player game object every single frame. Okay, and over here we will use a function, it's called transform. Okay, transform is responsible for position, rotation and scale. Dot translate function. Okay, translate function, basically what we doing, we are moving over to this player game object transform, then we using this translate function. And translate function will take basically will take the direction, which direction we want to go. Okay, so in this case we want to go in forward direction of our player game object. Like this, if I hold down, as you can see, we just wanna go in the forward direction. So what we have to type over here, we can pass transform dot forward. Okay, or what else you can do, you can pass also vector 3 dot forward. Vector 3 dot forward, it's basically means x in the 0, we not moving in the x, in the y, and we moving in the z direction. So in the z axis 1, so every single frame in the z axis we going 1. So the z axis this one. Okay, so like this it will go over like this is the example of it. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. So instead of passing vector 3 dot forward, I will pass transform dot forward, basically which direction player is looking. So as you can see, player is looking in the direction of main camera is looking, so straight forward. Or what you can do, instead of doing this, let's do this, let's grab the reference of our camera. Okay, the camera is which direction camera is looking. So as you can see, camera is looking forward. So basically what we want to do, we want to take this camera position, basically the direction camera is looking, in that direction we want to move our game object. So basically we need a basically reference of our main camera. So let's go to script, and instead of transform dot forward, I'm gonna remove this. Let's go to top of our class, let's create a public transform. Okay, a transform, let's call it sorry, let's call it cam, basically camera. Okay, and close that up with semicolon. And then we will move to this transform dot translate function, and then we will over here we will pass cam dot transform dot forward. Okay, forward, and close that up with semicolon. Okay, control S to save your code. Now let's go to Unity. We should hope that our game object indeed will move in the direction camera is looking by 1 unit every single frame. So transform dot forward basically means the direction camera is looking, cam dot transform. And of course we need to drag the reference of our main camera. Okay, so select this main camera and drag it to that cam transform. Now we have main camera transform, basically position, rotation and scale, or also direction you can say. Okay, now let's hit this play button. We should hope this player game object will go in the direction camera is looking indeed. Okay, as you can see it's going, but it's going too much fast. So what we want to do, we need to multiply this with time.delta time. Okay, basically we need to make frame rate independence. Basically in my PC, or you can say in my laptop or system, this update function runs in 1 second 60 frame. But suppose you do have a fast system, that in your case this update function will run 120 frames per second. So there you can see huge difference of frame rates. To make it constant our frame rate, we need to multiply this with time.delta time to make frame rate constant. Okay, so we need to multiply this time.delta time. Okay, and also let's multiply this with so it will make our frame rate constant. Now whatever system you use, the frame rate will be in 1 second 60 or something like that, even you are using a fast system. Okay, and let's also multiply with a some unit so we can adjust the speed. So let's go to top of our class, let's make a public. Okay, public, let's call that will be float, let's call it move speed. Okay, move speed, and by default I'm gonna give 5 amount of speed, and let's multiply this whole thing or direction with our move speed. So every single frame with 5 amount of unit we will go in this z direction. Okay, so control s to save your code. Now it's make, and now we gonna able to see that we will move in the forward direction with 5 amount of every single frame. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button. Okay, let's hit this play button, and we're gonna able to see that our game our this player game object will move in the, as you can see it's moving. Okay, the problem is that camera is not moving. You might be thinking, if you you might be thinking you can take your camera, then you will make child of this main camera, but however this will be an this will be a weird, because if we move our if I move play around with y-axis of player, as you can see it's weirdly also our main camera is just looking. So basically we made our main camera is a child. So instead of doing this, we want our main camera to move independently and follow the player. So I'm gonna take my camera, I'm not gonna make the child this main camera. So let's go to script, let's create a script, follow script, something like that. So let's go to assets, then script, right click, create C# script. Let's call this script to follow. Okay, and let's double click that script to open up in Visual Studio quickly. Double click that to open up in Visual Studio. Okay, and let's go to Unity and make sure you attach this script to this main camera. Okay, and in main camera what we just want to follow this player in the x axis z axis only, which is the forward one. Okay, so select this main camera and select the script, scroll to select that script and drag it to add component section, and let's now double click that to open up in Visual Studio. So let's remove this start function, we don't need, and also these two namespaces from the top. Okay, so we need a reference of player reference so we can follow the player. So we need player position or player transform, you can say. So let's create a public. Okay, public transform, let's call it player or player position, you can call, close that off with semicolon, and let's go to update function. Let's create a vector 3 direction. Okay, direction or the position we should follow. Okay, so you can pass instead of doing that, let's do transform dot position. Okay, basically transform dot position over here, main camera transform dot position, basically this position of main camera. Okay, and let's set equal to new vector 3. Okay, new vector 3, vector 3, and we do know that vector 3 has x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. So we don't want to follow our player in the x-axis. Okay, we don't just move our main camera in the x-axis or in the y-axis. Okay, something like this. So we don't want, so let's set back to 0 again. Okay, so I'm gonna drag the main camera a little bit up. We only want to just move just for just what you can say, we just want to follow our player in the z-axis, which is the forward one, something this. Okay, so we only want to follow our player in the z-axis, so that is the case. So let's go to script, and over here in the x I will pass 0f, in the y as well instead of passing 0s, let's pass transform. dot position dot y sorry dot x. What does it basically means? It basically means current position in the x axis of our main camera, as you can see, which is 0. So this one over here will be 0. Basically it's reference the current position of our main camera. Okay, and let's do the same thing for our y. So transform dot position dot y, but in the z axis what we want to play replace this z axis with our player dot position dot z. So the main camera position in the z axis will be player position in the z axis. So wherever player goes in the z axis, main camera will also go with it in the z axis or z direction, you can say. Okay, so that's the thing. So let's replace this player dot position dot z. Okay, and now control s to save your code. Let's move to unity. We should hope that our main camera indeed gonna follow uh, our player game object in the z axis, which is the forward one. And also make sure you drag the reference of your player to this player transform. So select the player and drag it out there. And now let's hit this play button. We should hope that main camera will also gonna go with our player game object in the z axis. Okay, so we did some mistake. So what we need so we did some mistake, I guess. Okay, so let's do -10. Okay. So we get the problem. Basically the problem is that in the z axis, okay, so we will add to this z axis. Okay, and basically what over here is happening that so the z player position in the z axis, which is -4, -3.55. So this main camera position in the z axis also became -3.55. So that's why we are not able to see the player. So what we want to do, so in the main camera in the z axis, we will add a little bit 10 value, or sorry, we will subtract a some value. If we subtract, okay, something like, if we subtract something like 10, or sorry, or add 10, we can see able to see our player. So basically what we will do, now I'm gonna take my game object. So over here I will add to this player position in the z axis something like 10f. Okay, offset, you can say. Okay, so let's go to top of our class. Let's create a public, okay, public float. Let's call it offset z. Okay, offset z, and by default I'm gonna set it to 10f. And let's replace this okay, replace this with offset z. Okay, and now control s to save your code. Let's move to unity. We should hope that now it will be fine, and you can adjust the value as you need. Okay, so let's so as you can see, offset is there. Now we should hope that it will work fine. So let's hit this play button in the top, which is -7.52. We should just, okay, so we just have to put over here minus, and okay, to this 10. So we will put something like -7.52, as you can see. So let's do over here 7.52. Okay, so we just dragging the main camera a little bit further away from the player in the z axis. So the main camera can capture the player. Okay, we just offsetting our main camera backward a little bit, you can say, so we can see the player. Okay, else we not gonna able to see. So let's hit this play button one more time, and now it should work fine. Okay, let's hope it will be fine. So as you can see, we are indeed following our player. So now it's pretty great. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. The main camera is following. So let me play one more time so you can see it over right over here. So let's hit this play button, and the main camera will follow the player in the z axis only. Okay, which is the forward or looking straight. As you can see, the main camera indeed going with our player game object. Okay, so I hope you get the idea of it. Okay, And lastly, thanks for watching this video. Okay, goodbye.